All right, let's talk some football with Aaron Murray, the Georgia great. You see him on CBS, you see him on SEC Network. He is with us on the JohnstonRVCenter.com hotline. What is up, Aaron? How are you today?
Doing well. No more CBS, just ESPN.
My
They did let me
apologies.
double dip with both, but
My
yeah,
apologies.
don't. But no, doing well, doing well. Actually, my wife has had been invited to 3 weddings this fall. I missed the first 2. I'm actually taking the weekend off this weekend to go to one, and I still can't believe she has 3 friends that scheduled weddings in the fall.
It's poor
So it's
judgment.
been
Yeah,
unbelievable.
it is amazing.
Unbelievable.
It's poor judgment.
I mean, we've always said this. People need to know from January through August, you can get married anytime you want.
Mm-hmm.
Just once you get to late August, it just doesn't work out.
It's unbelievable.
Yeah.
It is unbelievable. I mean, and all of them went to Florida or Georgia. So they went to football schools or football fans. The one this weekend's 2 Georgia fans. They went there. So it's somewhat of a Georgia bye week. So if you're going to pick a weekend to get married to your Georgia Bulldog fan, this is probably the weekend to do it. So had to go to at least one of them.
Yeah.
Let's start with your Bulldogs, and let's start with Carson Beck. I know the offensive line hasn't been what we thought it would be, but there is a difference, Carson Beck in Athens and Carson Beck on the road.
Yeah, I mean, but listen, second half, Carson Beck versus Alabama was pretty darn good. So, I mean, I think you had that moment to hopefully build on going forward. But you have to think the defenses that he went against on the road this season are pretty darn good. Ole Miss on the road, really good football game, really good football team, bad weather. Texas, I think Texas is one of the best defenses in the country. And I'm not trying to make excuses for Carson. He has to be better. If you want to be a first-round quarterback, which I still believe – if you can bottle up what you saw in Athens a week ago and replicate that going forward, not only is Georgia the favorite in my mind to win a national championship, but he works his way back into the first round. He is capable of playing like that. I don't want to say hey, okay, you're going to go on the road, so that means you're going to throw 2 or 3 interceptions. That has to be better. I think the guys around him have to be better. And you saw guys step up this past weekend as well. Guys making plays down the field, receivers catching the football, tight ends catching the football, Yursek, Oscar struggled early on in the season. So I think you're starting to see confidence with him and his weapons. Obviously, the offensive line played the best game they probably played this entire season as well. So fingers crossed for Georgia fans. It seems like everything's starting to click around him. And hopefully he doesn't feel like he has to be Superman in order to go out there and will this team to touchdowns.
You mentioned Georgia in a national championship, and it's on this show. We said last year if Georgia had gotten into the 14 playoffs, we thought they could win a national championship. We still think they are good enough to win a national championship this year. Take Georgia out of the mix. If not Georgia, then who's next for you, Aaron, on somebody you have confidence in that can win a national championship? Because we did this exercise yesterday. Mm-hmm. And every time we mentioned a team, I was like, I'm just not sure I trust that team. I did that with all 12 playoff teams.
So it's funny. We had a somewhat similar conversation last night. I do a Georgia show once a week with Ben Jones, Nosha Moreno, Tavares King, and we kind of had the who does Georgia not want to face in the playoffs scenario. So I mean, kind of runs together. And the 2 teams I think we both agreed on were Ole Miss and Alabama. I think Ole Miss and Alabama right now are playing really good football. And maybe just because I haven't seen as much about Oregon this year and just their schedule, but I've seen a lot of Ole Miss, and that's a great defense. That's a great defensive line. That's an offense that is now all of a sudden Jackson Dart with weapons other than Trey Harris are putting up monster numbers. Then all of a sudden you throw Trey into the equation. How do you stop them? Can the offensive line continue to play? That's going to be where everyone's eyeballs are going to be on. But I think from an entire football team, I think Ole Miss is really good. You look at Alabama. When Jalen's on, he is the most difficult player to control in all of college football. The defense has stepped their game up the past month. So that's another team that's playing well on defense. They're maturing on the back end, very young, but they're maturing. And all of a sudden on offense, you're seeing a quarterback that is playing at a really, really high level. So, and obviously Georgia just doesn't win against Alabama. So obviously Georgia doesn't want to face those 2. So I would say those 2 to me are playing as good as anyone in the country. Ohio State, I still worry about the offensive line. I believe they just lost their center for the year with an Achilles tear. So what happens with that group up front? Those would be my favorite 2. Like I said, Ole Miss, Alabama, and then probably Texas as 3 for my favorites to win besides Georgia.
Aaron Murray is with us, the former Georgia great at Aaron Murray 11 on social media is where you find him. He does snaps with T-Bob. You get that same place you get our show. Just look for snaps. He and T-Bob do a great job of that. You see him on the SEC Network.
He's with us on the JohnstonRVCenter.com hotline, also on ESPN. You said when Jalen Milroe is playing at that level, what have you seen different from him when he's playing at the level you just described, and then when he's playing just below that level? What are the glaring differences in his game for you?
Well, I think it comes down to health. I truly believe when they were going on a little run of a couple games where the offense kind of was lacking a little bit. I don't know. I mean, I'm completely wrong. Didn't really hear anything definitive, but he did not look the same. I think the difference between Jalen this year and Jalen a year ago is the offensive design around him just to run the football. I have never seen Georgia look that slow on defense. I mean, it's probably been a decade since I've seen Georgia look that slow. That's what he did to hit them in the first half of that football game early on this season. He has elite speed. He has elite quickness. He has great size. When he just takes off and runs, it's you can have a spy all you want. He made Malachi Starks look slow. And Malachi is one of the best defensive players in all of America. That's how good he is. A year ago, I felt like he was trying to be a pocket quarterback. And at times, you're like, just run, you run. You saw a little bit towards the end of the season. You saw it against Auburn, the big run, and their comeback win in that game. But this year, it's just been the design run, especially in the red zone. So I just think that part of his game has evolved because of just his willingness to do it more, because of the play calling. I still think the passing has gone better. It all comes down to his lower half. You know, I diagrammed this a lot early in the season. You know, he still at times is not, you know, the base is not great. His feet are not going in the right direction. He's thrown off platform when he doesn't need to necessarily do that. But overall, better passer, more willing runner, makes him one of the most dangerous players in all of college football. And, you know, it's funny. I've had South Carolina twice this year. Week one, and I sat down with Lenores and the coaching staff, and they kept talking about, you know, I want to be a pocket quarterback. I want to be a guy that sits in the pocket. I can do that. That's what I'll be known for. And after the bye week, they told him, like, listen, as you develop as a passer, your legs are your biggest tool. Just run. When things aren't there, don't feel like you have to get the 3 and 4. Just take off. And all of a sudden, you're seeing Lenores take his game to another level. Obviously, Jalen's a more mature quarterback, has played more. I think he's a little bit better with getting through his progressions. But same thing. Just use your legs, man. It's your most dangerous weapon. And he's been fun to watch this year.
You know, perfect segue here, and I'm glad you brought up Lenore Sellers, because last night we were doing a specialty show and we were talking about young quarterbacks in this league. And I said if I could have any of these guys for the next 2 years, I think I would take Lenore Sellers. I don't know where you are on the young quarterbacks. You know, we just had Dusty Dvorak on talking about Jackson Arnold, Nico at Tennessee. You know, help me out. There's young ones all over. DJ Lagway.
Lagway.
Yeah,
there are a ton of young quarterbacks.
What direction would you go? I mean, who do you think shows the most promise?
So I've had two of the young ones this year. So I've had DJ Lagway. I had their game versus Kentucky, which he was just a masterful performance. I've had South Carolina twice. I had South Carolina ODU, and then I had South Carolina versus Vanderbilt. So I've seen Lenore at probably his worst first game of the season, then one of his better games. And it seems like he's only having great games as of late this season. So if I had to pick one of those two, obviously you throw Nico into the equation. You can throw Texas A&M in there as well. I mean, this league we thought was going to be good this year at the quarterback position. It has been a little bit disappointing, but when you do look to the future, this is a league that's going to have 4 or 5 young quarterbacks that could start for the next 2 years. And sorry, Marcel Reed, the name slipped my mind for a second. It's like those 4 guys are going to be studs. But if I had to bet on one right now, I would probably go 1 DJ Lagway, 2 Lenores. I think DJ obviously is a great runner. DJ's got great size. I think DJ's the best passer of all of them. I think DJ's a better passer than Lenores. I think he's a better passer than Nico. I think that guy can push the ball vertically down the field. You've seen him take over the game throwing the football, and you've seen him make some pretty awesome plays running the football as well. So I think we're in for a really, really good future in this league when it comes to the quarterback position.
The team that nobody's talking about when it comes to the college football playoffs or the national championship is Texas A&M. They got a tough one at Auburn this week, and then Texas in the big game we're all waiting for, dying to see. Is there still juice left in the Aggies to make the college football playoffs and make some noise, in your opinion?
Yeah, I actually was on the call for their game last week, and I was texting family and friends. And listen, it was no disrespect to New Mexico State, but it was New Mexico State night game there in Kyle Field. and it was 105,000 people going crazy for 3.5 quarters. It was the environment there is second to none. It is absolutely incredible. Are they contenders? Can they take care of business against Auburn and then Texas in a week and a half from now? It comes down to Marcel Reed. You watch the tape, and it's hard to always judge a quarterback. How good of a thrower he is. Does the ball have some pop out of his hand? And seeing him live in person, like, all right, man, the ball does pop out of his hand. He can make the throws. He's throwing with better anticipation after the bye week. That's something they worked on hard with him. But are they good enough around him? Le'Veon Moss is out. Amari Daniels is pretty good. They got some other young running backs. E.J. Smith, obviously not a young guy, but new to the program. I think the receivers are good, not great. And the defense is really good, especially up front. So, it comes down to how diverse can they be on offense? Can they run the football? Can they get the ball to playmakers against a Texas defense, which I talked about earlier? I believe is one of the best 5 defenses in all of college football. So they're going to have a chance, no doubt about it. Kyle Field, I'm guessing it's going to be a night game. A Texas offense that's been struggling a little bit against an A&M defense, who I believe is really good. But I just think that they're a little bit inexperienced in some key positions for me to say that they're true contenders to win a national championship. But yeah, they're good enough to beat Texas in 2 weeks.
Speaking of Auburn, Aaron, before you go, in that game against Texas A&M, they came out of the bye. Granted, it was Louisiana Monroe. Everybody understands that, right? Mm-hmm. But they came out of the bye, and they had as crisp an offensive performance as they've probably had since August.
Yep.
This late in the season, are you able to flip a switch like that? Do you just write that off as opponent? I mean, what might have happened there, you think?
Well, I mean, you can especially when you have freshmen. You have to understand freshmen are going to be making massive leaps during their first year. And we always talk about like year 1 to year 2, but throughout the season, you also start to see like, okay, Payne Thorne finding Cam Coleman, hey, this guy's pretty good. And now all of a sudden he's got 10 games under his belt. So you start to see these playmakers emerge on the outside, which then all of a sudden gives Jaquez Hunter the ability to go against a light box and have one of his better games too. So Payne Thorne can throw the football, and I think he can throw the football well. It's a decision-making thing for him. But when you have receivers that are playing at a high level and making plays, then all of a sudden, as we know, it's a light box. Payne can use his legs. You can get Jaquez going a little bit. So, yeah, this offense is definitely starting to mature in the pass game. That's what you hoped when you signed a couple 5-stars out of the high school ranks a year ago. Like I said, now all of a sudden those freshmen are starting to hit their stride a little bit. And you hope that part of the game, it can loosen up A&M a little bit this weekend.
All right, he is Aaron Murray. Follow him on social media at Aaron Murray 11. See him on the SEC Network and ESPN. Hear him on Sirius XM. See him with T-Bob on Snaps. Same place you get this show is where you find Snaps. Just do the search for that and subscribe so you can follow them. Aaron, we greatly appreciate the time, man. It's always fun talking to you.
Appreciate y'all. Have a great weekend.
All right, buddy. You too. Take care.
Enjoy the wedding, man.
Yeah. Aaron with us.
He ain't going to be there.
On the JohnstonRVCenter.com hotline.